Hey, how's it going? Jossie here. So 9.1 has finally come out. Super hyped. It's been a long time, but it's finally here. And season 2 of Shadowlands for PvP starts tomorrow, which is so exciting. Of course, if you're watching this video a bit later than the day it comes out, which is probably most of you, then the season has already started, which is fine because either way, I'm here to tell you how to get the most advantage of playing in the early season. Okay, because playing in the early season, if you play smart and you play it right, it can really actually set you up far ahead for the rest of the season, right? Set you up for good. You're gonna get more rating if you start early, even if you play the same amount of games early than if you were to start late. So, what are the benefits of playing the early season, and how exactly does that translate into CR, right? So, first and most importantly, okay, is the way that the CR algorithm works, right? Specifically on the interaction of how many amount of players there are playing and games being played. So the more players that you have playing the game at any given moment, the more CR is inflated for everybody. And how that works is that each new player who plays games injects CR into the system because in the beginning part of the 0 to like 1200, you don't actually lose rating. You gain more rating than you lose, and that bubbles up to higher and higher ratings. And basically, people who are playing new games generate more CR as long as everyone keeps playing, right? So obviously, the start of the season, right? That's when there's the most PvP activity. It's always like this. It's been this way every season of PvP in all history of WoW, right? It's always just like it's a seasonal game essentially, right? And it just declines over time, which is fine. But basically, the earlier you play, specifically right now, right? If you're playing right now, the more players there are, that there will be in this whole season, and the more chance there is for you to benefit from this rating inflation. If you just simply get a ton of games in right now, your CR is gonna be more than it will be later, even if you get the same amount of games in later in the season. Okay, so that leads us into the second point I'm going to talk about, which is gear. Okay, so when the season first starts, everyone's on an equal playing field, approximately, right? Mostly, right? Like definitely, obviously, people from 9.0 can bring in some gear up to 227, which will put you ahead of like people who are starting out. But very quickly, okay, the PvP gear from 9.1 is going to catch up and get ahead of that. So here's the important part. Okay, you have to keep up with the gear right now. Right from the very beginning, right? You have to get your weekly vault. Make sure you get a conquest piece. Make sure you get a unique one that you don't have, and make sure you cap your weekly conquest, right? So you can fill in pieces that you didn't get from the vault. Okay, and yeah, you may say, obviously, this is a stupid tip. It's so obvious, right? Of course, you keep up with gear, but I want to specify that it's so important not to fall behind in gear. Okay, like it's so important. I can't understate how important it is to not fall behind because once you start falling behind in gear in the first weeks, it starts to snowball into a scenario where you need rating to get gear, but you need gear to get rating, right? And you're behind everybody because the people who are at your rating level, like who are getting you from like 1600, 1800, 2100, whatever, they already have more gear than you. And you just it's so much harder. Like you need to play better than you actually would have to get 1600 because you have lower gear than you're expected to have. Okay, right now, at the very start of the season is the only time where you're going to be on par with everybody. Okay, you're going to be on an even playing field with the best players, the worst players, and basically you're going to be able to climb to a rating that you actually deserve, right? Instead of being gated by gear, which is unfortunately how the Shadowlands system has played out with this system. All right, the last point I want to bring up is about the meta. Okay, so there's a lot of PP changes coming to 9.1. Everyone knows that. There's like basically a whole honor talent rework going for everybody. And what this means is that no one's ever able to predict the meta properly, right? Especially when this many changes come through. Like people are going to make tier lists. I have myself as well. But basically until people actually play the game, until we get more data points of games in, no one's going to know what actually happens, right? And for the first month or so, maybe even more than that, right? Basically anything is viable and that's something you can take advantage of, okay? You can take advantage of basically what you think is good and what you want to play. So first of all, disclaimer, I don't mean to say that the meta is everything. In fact, my belief is quite contrary from that. I'd always take the player over the class. I think that's so much more important. Like all the way up until maybe like 3K or something, right? Like the player is so much more important. There's so much ways to outplay and be smart in RPGs and WoW in general. But just the way that the LFG works, like with, like mass social dynamic, is that once the meta is defined, like it's so hard to break out of it. Like for example, in 9.0 we had double disc HPAL as a healing comp, and like everybody wanted that, and they would give up so much. Every team leader would give up so much to get that one specific comp that the meta has said is good. And once again, regardless if that's right or wrong, that's the reality that we live in. And if you want to find groups, then you gotta play around this, right? But because this meta doesn't exist in the early season, right? If you can convince people, if you can situate yourself in a situation where you have good reputation or you already have a high rating, then later on in the season, you actually won't be left out when the meta starts to lock down. That way you can play what you want to play and you can play how you want to play it if you catch the starting season right now. For example, in 9.0 season, I knew a hunter, right, who played RBGs, and nobody wanted hunters. Okay, nobody liked hunters. And to be fair, hunters were, pretty suboptimal, right? But there's one hunter who played early in the season who got a really high rating, and he's a great player, right? He's an incredible player. And the teams are taking him in the end because he had the high rating, he had a reputation of being like best hunter ever in RBGs, and he did great. And other than him, no other team at the higher ratings would take a hunter, right? And you may be just as good a hunter as that guy. You may be the best hunter ever, but it's not going to be taken if you didn't set yourself up for it. All right, well, there you have it. Those are a couple of reasons why playing in the early season is so beneficial, right, to your rating, and also tips on how we can use knowledge actually, right, to actually translate it into real CR. And I don't mean to say that if you missed the early season, it's all over for you, right? That's not true. You can definitely still climb as high as deserve. But if you don't start early, like I said, because of these things, it's just going to be a bit harder for you. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like if you're playing games, you're having a good time RPGs, and you're improving and you're learning, then you're gonna get a rating that you deserve. But yeah, if you're watching this video right now, I mean, that means you are in the perfect opportunity, right, to take advantage of this, right? You have the chance right now to get into some games and just play RPGs and have fun, and at the same time climb a bunch of rating. So take advantage of it. Well, I hope you learned a lot from this video. I hope it encourages people to just queue up, right? The more people who are playing, the better it is for everybody. We all get to have more fun, and yeah, it's better for you and it's better for me as well, man, for everybody. So yeah, drop me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I got a ton more RPG content coming out. 9.1 is going to be a super hype season, and I got a ton of plans for it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.